Ozzy's favorite game is hide and seek, and Maria plays it with him every single time he asks. Every time Ozzy finally finds her, after searching the whole apartment, checking every corner, getting more and more frustrated, his reaction is always the same: pure happiness. The kind of happiness only a dog feels when he finally finds the most important person in his world. But this story didn't start with hide and seek. It started a few years ago, on a completely ordinary afternoon that turned into something much bigger. Maria had gone to visit her friend Ava. Nothing special, just hanging out. But the moment she walked into Ava's apartment, she froze. Puppies. An entire litter tumbling around the room, climbing over each other, stumbling across the floor, discovering the world for the very first time. Maria had always wanted a dog, but she kept convincing herself it wasn't the right time. She lived alone, she worked a lot. A dog wasn't just fun, it was a real responsibility, and she wasn't sure she was ready for that. But while she stood there watching the puppies play, one little puppy kept coming back to her again and again. Small, mostly white, full of attitude already. Every time Maria reached down, the puppy climbed toward her, licked her hand, sat in her lap, chose her over and over again without hesitation. Maria scratched behind his ears while smiling to herself. That's when Ava looked at her and said, "That one's yours." Maria laughed. She thought Ava was joking, but Ava wasn't joking at all. "I'm serious," she said. "Take him home." Maria looked at the puppy. The puppy looked back at her. A few minutes later, she picked him up, held him against her chest, and drove home with him. She named him Ozzy. When Ozzy first arrived, Maria's brother happened to be visiting. The two of them instantly became best friends, running around the apartment, playing non-stop, acting like they had known each other forever. Maria watched them together and suddenly realized something. Her brother would leave soon. He always did. Her job had moved her far away from her family, and she had gotten used to the silence that came with living alone, the quiet evenings, the empty apartment, the stillness. But then she looked at Ozzy, and Ozzy looked back at her, and in that moment she realized something important. She wasn't going to be alone anymore. The very first time Maria tried leaving Ozzy home alone, she put him in a crate. She left for 10 minutes, just 10. When she came back, the entire crate had somehow moved across the floor. Ozzy hadn't escaped, he was too small for that, but he had pushed, shoved, and dragged the entire thing like he was protesting the situation itself. Maria stood there staring at him. Ozzy stared right back. Clearly, the crate arrangement needed work, because here's the truth about Ozzy. He absolutely hates being alone. He wants attention constantly. He wants company. He wants cuddles, games, conversations, and full emotional involvement 24 hours a day. And without even realizing it, Maria became exactly the person he needed. She spent time with him constantly, played with him, talked to him, made him feel safe. And Ozzy responded the way dogs do when they finally trust someone completely. He attached himself to her with his whole heart. One afternoon, Maria brought Ozzy to a friend's house. Her friend had a cat named Zoe, and Zoe was not happy at all. The moment Ozzy walked in, Zoe immediately decided he was a problem. For almost 2 hours, she watched him carefully from a distance like security guarding restricted property. Meanwhile, Ozzy couldn't have cared less. He explored the house, played around, then eventually curled up and fell asleep. That's when Zoe finally got curious. Slowly, she walked over. First, she sniffed him, then she tapped his tail, then his paws. Before long, Zoe was sitting beside him, completely invested in a game that Ozzy was sleeping through. By the end of the visit, they were basically friends. It just took Zoe a little extra time to admit it. Back home, Maria and Ozzy settled into life together, and life with Ozzy was never boring. If Maria sat on the couch, Ozzy sat on the couch. If she walked into another room, Ozzy followed immediately. One day, Maria made the mistake of sitting in Ozzy's dog bed just to see his reaction. Ozzy completely lost his mind. That was his bed. The betrayal was unbelievable. He barked, complained, paced around dramatically, and refused to calm down until Maria finally stood up, which she did, because apparently Ozzy had won that argument. During walks, Ozzy made another friend, a neighbor's dog, and from the very first meeting, the two of them clicked instantly. After that, every single walk became predictable. The closer they got to the neighbor's house, the slower Ozzy walked. Then eventually he would stop completely and sit beside his friend, refusing to leave. Not angry, not scared, just fully committed to staying there forever if necessary. And nail trimming? That was another disaster entirely. The only trick that ever worked involved balancing treats on top of his forehead. As long as the treat stayed there, Ozzy stayed still. The second the snack disappeared, so did all cooperation. But underneath all the chaos, all the stubbornness, and all the drama, Ozzy had a soft side that showed exactly who he truly was. One afternoon, Maria jokingly pretended to cry. The reaction was immediate. Ozzy stopped everything. He rushed over to her, pressed himself against her, looked directly into her face, and stayed there quietly, trying to understand what was wrong and how he could fix it. Maria wasn't actually sad, but Ozzy didn't know that. All he knew was that his person sounded hurt, and he wasn't leaving until he knew she was okay. That's who Ozzy really is. Underneath the chaos, the crate wars, the dramatic protests, and the endless attention-seeking, he's just a dog who loves his person completely. And today, they still play hide-and-seek. Maria hides, Ozzy searches. Recently, Maria found a brand new hiding spot, somewhere Ozzy had never checked before. At first, he was confused. He searched the apartment twice, then 3 times. You could actually see him thinking harder and harder as he tried to figure it out. And then finally, he found her. Because of course he did. She's his person. He's always going to find her. From the tiny puppy who kept climbing into her lap at Ava's house, to the full-grown dog who rushes to comfort her whenever she fake cries, Ozzy has been choosing Maria since the very first day, and Maria has never stopped choosing him back. If you want to keep following Ozzy and Maria's adventures, subscribe to their YouTube channel linked in the description.